Get out! Get out now! Charlotte screamed, hurling my suitcase onto the front lawn where it burst open, my underwear and medication scattering across the wet grass. I can't stand another day of that disgusting old person's smell. It's in the furniture, the curtains, everywhere. Neighbours peeked through windows as I stood trembling in my nightgown, locked out of my son's home at 11:30 at night. Rain soaked through the thin fabric as Michael watched from the doorway, his wife's arm wrapped possessively around his waist. "Mum, I'm sorry," he mumbled, not meeting my eyes. "Charlotte's right. It's affecting their business. Clients notice." The irony burned deeper than my tears. In my purse, clutched against my chest, was a cashier's check for 250,000 tun. My entire life savings I'd planned to invest in their failing design company tonight. 47 years of night shifts and double shifts. For this. "You'll regret this day," I whispered, my voice stronger than I felt. "I promise you that." I spent that night in my ancient Honda, parked behind a 24-hour diner, shivering and sobbing until my chest ached. 68 years old and homeless, while my ungrateful son and his wife slept in the 4-bedroom house I'd helped them buy with a $30,000 down payment gift. "She'll come around," Michael had said when he first introduced Charlotte 5 years ago. I'd seen the warning signs immediately, the way she inspected my modest home with barely concealed disgust, how she accidentally knocked over my treasured photo albums, her theatrical gagging when I served my late husband's favourite meatloaf recipe. But Michael was smitten. After losing his father to cancer when he was just 19, he'd been drifting. Charlotte, with her business degree and polished appearance, seemed to give him direction. I bit my tongue, wrote checks, and prayed it would work out. By dawn, rage had replaced my tears. I drove to my friend Lorna's apartment where she took one look at my face and pulled me inside. "Those ungrateful little shits," she said, pouring me a strong cup of coffee laced with bourbon. "Tell me everything." I did. How their interior design business was hemorrhaging money because Charlotte insisted on catering exclusively to luxury clients who rarely materialized. How Michael had begged me just last month for a small loan of $15,000 to cover their mortgage. How I'd planned to surprise them with my entire retirement savings that night, convinced by Michael that I should move in permanently to save on expenses. "I was such a fool," I whispered, hands trembling around the warm mug. I actually believed them when they said they wanted me there. Lorna's eyes narrowed. "What was that you said to them before you left?" "That they'd regret it." "And will they?" Her voice was steel. I thought about the cashier's check in my purse, about my decades working as the financial administrator for one of the city's largest hospitals, about the network of doctors, lawyers and business owners who still called me for advice years after my retirement. "Yes," I said slowly, "they absolutely will." I spent the next 3 days using Lorna's guest room to make calls and create a plan. First to my attorney Wilson, who'd handled my husband's estate. "They have no legal right to throw you out," he said grimly. "Your name is on the deed as co-owner. But Margaret, do you really want to live somewhere you're not wanted?" "I don't," I said, "but I do want justice." My next call was to Dr. Patricia Weiss, whose private practice I'd helped rescue from bankruptcy 15 years ago. "An elderly smell," she repeated, incredulous. "Margaret, that's not even a real medical condition. It's a disgusting stereotype. And at 68, you're hardly decrepit. You smell like those expensive lavender soaps you always use. Charlotte claims I'm driving away their clients." "Bullshit," Patricia said bluntly. "Their business is failing because they don't know what they're doing." Michael was an art history major who never completed his degree, and Charlotte's business experience is 2 years at her daddy's car dealership before she got fired. That made me laugh for the first time in days. Something like that. "What do you need from me?" Patricia asked. A medical assessment, I said, and a statement about my hygiene. I'm building a case. By day 5, I'd found a modest but lovely one-bedroom apartment in a building owned by another former colleague. The rent was reasonable and the location was perfect, just 2 blocks from Charlotte and Michael's largest competitor, Horizon Designs. I'd also documented every penny I'd given them over the past 5 years. The down payment, the emergency credit card payments, the business investment that had mysteriously disappeared. All told, beyond the cashier's check they never received, I'd already given them $87,130. On day 6, I received a text from Michael. "Mom, where are you? We need to talk." I didn't respond. Instead, I walked into Horizon Designs and asked to speak with the owner, Jameson Wright. "Mrs. Winters," he said warmly, recognizing me immediately, "I heard about your situation. This town runs on gossip." "Call me Margaret," I said, settling into the chair across from his desk. "And yes, I imagine my daughter-in-law has been quite vocal about evicting her smelly old mother-in-law." Jameson's expression hardened. "Charlotte has always had a particular talent for burning bridges. What can I do for you?" I took out the cashier's check and placed it on his desk. "I'd like to discuss an investment opportunity," I said calmly, "and perhaps a bit of poetic justice." Jameson stared at the check for a long moment, then looked up at me with new respect in his eyes. $250,000, he said quietly. "That's a substantial investment, Margaret." "It was supposed to be my son and daughter-in-law's lifeline," I replied, my voice steady despite the pain still raw in my chest. "Instead, I'd like to become your silent partner, with 3 conditions." He leaned forward. "I'm listening." "First, this partnership remains confidential. Second, I want a legitimate job here, something visible, client-facing. And third," I paused, making sure he understood the gravity of what I was asking, "I want access to every high-end client in Charlotte's target market." Jameson smiled slowly. "You're not just looking for investment returns, are you? Let's just say I'm interested in poetic justice with compound interest." By the end of the week, I had a small office at Horizon with a new business card. Margaret Winters, Client Relations Director. Jameson introduced me to his team as an industry veteran with unparalleled connections in the community. It wasn't entirely false. 40 years in hospital administration had put me on a first-name basis with half the wealthy donors and board members in town. My phone continued buzzing with texts from Michael, growing increasingly desperate. "Mom, please call me. I'm worried." Charlotte didn't mean it. She was stressed about the Henderson account. "We need to talk about the business. It's urgent." I ignored them all. Instead, I spent my days at Horizon reviewing their client list and marketing strategies. At night, I furnished my new apartment with elegant pieces from Horizon's warehouse at employee prices. No floral sofas or doilies sleek, contemporary furniture that Charlotte herself would covet. My first major move came 2 weeks after my investment, when Dr. Patricia Weiss referred me to her patient, Elaine Harrington, wife of property developer Thomas Harrington. The Harringtons were renovating their lake house and had been considering Charlotte and Michael's firm. "Margaret!" Elaine exclaimed when she saw me at Horizon's reception desk. "I had no idea you worked here." I embraced her warmly. "Recently joined the team. How's Thomas's back pain?" "Much better since Dr. Weiss adjusted his medication." "Actually, I'm meeting with designers about our lake house. We were going to meet with your son's company next week, but if you're here..." I smiled. "I'd be honored to introduce you to our design team." By the end of the day, Horizon had secured the $175,000 Harrington Lake House project, a contract that would have saved Michael and Charlotte's business. That evening, my phone rang with Michael's number for the 20th time. Something inside me shifted and I answered. "Mom, thank God, where are you? We've been worried sick." "Have you?" I asked coldly. You seemed quite unconcerned when I was standing in the rain in my nightgown. Charlotte was, he stumbled. Things have been tense with the business. She didn't mean what she said. About my disgusting elderly smell? Silence stretched between us. We need you, Mom, he finally said, his voice breaking. The business is in trouble. We're about to lose everything. That sounds like a personal problem, Michael. Mom, please. We were counting on you moving in, helping with expenses. You said you were thinking about investing. And you said I was family. I cut him off, my voice like ice, until I became an embarrassment to be discarded. The saleswoman spritzed me with an exclusive French perfume that cost $300 a bottle. You look stunning, she said as I examined myself in the mirror. That color brings out your eyes. I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, not since before my husband died. Pride in my appearance. Confidence. When I arrived at Horizon wearing my new outfit, Jameson did a double take. Margaret, he said, you look incredible. I smiled. I have a meeting with the Sullivans this afternoon. Charlotte's been courting them for months. The Sullivan Hotel renovation. That's a $500,000 project. I know, I replied, applying a fresh coat of lipstick. I used to volunteer on the hospital charity committee with Regina Sullivan. Jameson's eyes widened. You really are going to destroy them, aren't you? I met his gaze steadily. No, Jameson. I'm going to teach them a lesson about respect. And it begins today. As I gathered my portfolio for the meeting, my phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Mom, we lost the Harrington account. Charlotte's having a meltdown. Please call me. I deleted it without responding and headed for the door. The war had just begun. Regina Sullivan embraced me like an old friend when I walked into the conference room at Horizon. Her husband Donald, the hotel magnate, looked up from his phone with interest. Margaret Winters. When they said you were their client relations director, I nearly fell off my chair. You're the last person I expected to see in the design world, Regina said. Life takes unexpected turns, I replied, smoothly opening my portfolio, especially when doors close unexpectedly. For the next hour, I watched Jameson and his team present their vision for the Sullivans' boutique hotel renovation. When Donald hesitated over the budget, I leaned in. Donald, remember when you joined the hospital board and questioned the cardiac wing expansion costs? You trusted me then, and it became the most profitable department. Trust me now, this investment will pay dividends. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. You haven't steered me wrong yet, Margaret. The contract was signed before lunch, $580,000 for the full renovation. As we celebrated with champagne, Regina pulled me aside. I heard about what happened with your son and that dreadful wife of his, she whispered. The whole country club is talking about it. Throwing you out at night, claiming you smelled old. She shook her head. Charlotte tried to pitch us last week, you know. Kept dropping names, pretending she had connections. When I mentioned knowing you, her face turned the most interesting shade of green. I smiled tightly. Did it now? Does Michael know you're working here? Regina asked. Not yet, I replied. But I imagine that's about to change. I was right. The next morning, as I walked into Horizon's elegant lobby carrying a latte, Michael was waiting, looking haggard and desperate. Mom? His voice cracked with disbelief as he took in my transformation, the tailored clothes, the sophisticated haircut I'd splurged on, the confidence in my posture. Hello, Michael, this is a surprise. You work here, at Horizon, Charlotte's biggest competitor? His face flushed with anger. How could you? I laughed a sharp, humorless sound. How could I? That's rich coming from the man who watched his wife throw me out like garbage. I've been trying to apologize. No, I cut him off. You've been trying to access my money. There's a difference. A few employees had stopped to watch our exchange. I was beyond caring. We lost the Sullivan contract to Horizon yesterday, Michael said. They were our last hope of saving the business, and somehow Horizon swooped in and understanding dawned on his face. It was you. You did this. I introduced old friends to my new colleagues, that's all. I stepped closer. How does it feel, Michael, to be discarded, to watch everything you've built crumble? Mom, please, he whispered. We're going to lose the house. Charlotte's father won't help us anymore. We need you. You need my money, I corrected. Not me. Never me. That's not true, he protested weakly. Tell me, does my smell offend you now? Standing here in my $300 perfume in the lobby of the company where I've just invested $250,000. The blood drained from his face. What did you say? You heard me. The money you and Charlotte were counting on is already spent. I'm Jameson's new partner. Jameson chose that moment to emerge from his office. Margaret, the Broderick Foundation called. They want to move up the meeting about their community centre project. He paused, noting Michael. Everything okay here? Fine, I said coolly. My son was just leaving. Michael looked between us, devastation written across his face. Mum, you can't do this to us. I'm not doing anything to you, Michael. Your choices led you here. After he left, Jameson studied my face. You okay? I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. It needed to happen. That afternoon, I received a series of texts from Charlotte. How dare you steal our clients? You vindictive old witch! Michael is devastated. Are you trying to destroy your own son? The last message gave me pause. We're putting the house on the market. Hope you're happy. The house my late husband and I had helped them buy. Where all our family photos were stored. Where the handcrafted rocking chair my father had made still sat in the spare room. For a moment doubt crept in. Was I going too far? Then I remembered the rain soaking through my nightgown, my medications scattered across the wet grass, the casual cruelty in Charlotte's voice. Get out! Get out now! I blocked her number and turned back to my computer. The Broderick Foundation project was worth $800,000, the largest contract in Horizon's history. And after my call with the Foundation's director, an old hospital donor, we were the front runners. That evening, as I unlocked the door to my new apartment, I realized something unexpected. For the first time in years, I wasn't living my life for Michael. I was living it for me. 2 weeks later, the for sale sign appeared in front of Michael and Charlotte's house. I drove past it slowly, my heart twisting despite my resolve. That home contained the last physical connections to my husband holiday decorations we'd collected over decades, the grandfather clock he'd restored, photo albums documenting our life together. My phone rang. My sister Janet's name flashed on the screen. Margaret Winters, she began without preamble. What the hell is going on? Michael just called me sobbing, saying you've declared war on him and Charlotte. I pulled into a parking lot and took a deep breath. Did he mention why? Some nonsense about a misunderstanding. Said Charlotte was stressed and said something she regrets, and now you're trying to bankrupt them out of spite. I laughed bitterly. A misunderstanding? Janet, they threw me out in my nightgown at midnight. Charlotte screamed that I smelled like death while Michael watched. My medications ended up scattered across their front lawn. Silence then. Jesus Christ. I was going to give them my retirement savings that night. So this revenge business, is it real? You're actually working for their competitor? I'm not just working for Horizon. I'm a partner. And yes, I've redirected some clients their way. Janet whistled low. Remind me never to cross you, sis. A pause. But Maggie, he's still your son. Those words haunted me as I drove to Horizon for our weekly strategy meeting. Was I punishing my son to hurt Charlotte? Or was I finally standing up for myself after a lifetime of sacrifice? The office was buzzing when I arrived. Jameson met me at the door, practically vibrating with excitement. The Riverview development contract. he said breathlessly. We got it. 7 figures, Margaret. The biggest project in the county. I should have been elated. Instead, I felt hollow. Congratulations. This is your victory too, Jameson insisted. Your connection with the Sullivan Project impressed them. As I settled into my office, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You win. We're ruined. Hope you're satisfied. Charlotte. The petty part of me wanted to reply, not yet. The mother in me wanted to ask about Michael. I did neither, setting the phone aside as Lorna called. Lunch? She suggested. You sound like you need to talk. We met at a small cafe downtown. I'd barely sat down when Lorna leaned forward. You look terrible. Thanks. I mean it. You've lost weight. There are circles under your eyes. This revenge thing is eating you alive. I stirred my coffee, avoiding her eyes. They're selling the house. Good, let them downsize. All of Robert's things are in that house, I whispered. My late husband's possessions, the tangible remnants of our life together, soon to be packed away or discarded by the very people who'd discarded me. So get them, Lorna said simply. You still have a key, right? And your name is on the deed. Go when they're not home. The idea took root immediately. That afternoon, I parked down the street from my son's house, watching Charlotte leave for her yoga class. Michael would be at their failing office, desperately trying to salvage client relationships. I had a 2-hour window. With trembling hands, I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The house smelled of cardboard and desperation, moving boxes stacked in corners, furniture tagged for sale. I moved through the rooms like a ghost, collecting the pieces of my past. Robert's monogrammed cufflinks, our wedding album, the quilt my grandmother had made. In the spare room, I found the rocking chair my father had crafted, now buried under Charlotte's designer purses. Something snapped inside me. I began methodically packing everything that mattered, not just Robert's belongings, but items from Michael's childhood I couldn't bear to lose. His baby book, the clay handprint from kindergarten, the Mother's Day cards that proclaimed me world's best mom. As I loaded the final box into my car, a familiar voice froze me in place. Mom? I turned slowly. Michael stood on the driveway, his expression unreadable. I still have a key, I said unnecessarily, and my name is on the deed. I know. He looked at the boxes in my car. Taking what's yours? Yes, my voice broke despite my resolve. He nodded slowly, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet pouch. I was going to bring this to you, Dad's wedding ring. I've been carrying it around, trying to find the courage to face you. He held it out, and when I took it, our fingers brushed. For a moment, we were just mother and son again, both hurting, both lost. Then a car screeched into the driveway. Charlotte had returned early. What the hell is going on? She demanded, slamming her car door. Are you stealing our things now? Michael turned to her, something new hardening in his face. They're her things, Charlotte. Michael, she hissed, don't you dare take her side now. I closed my trunk, clutching Robert's ring in my palm. I have what I came for. As I moved toward my car, Charlotte stepped in front of me, her face contorted with rage. This isn't over, she snarled. You think you've won? You haven't seen what I'm capable of when someone crosses me. I met her gaze steadily. Neither have you. Charlotte's threat followed me home like a shadow. I slept poorly that night, Robert's wedding ring clutched in my palm, surrounded by boxes of rescued memories. Something in Charlotte's eyes had chilled me, a calculated malice beyond mere anger. I didn't have to wait long to discover what she meant. 3 days later, I walked into Horizon and found Jameson waiting with a grim expression. You need to see this, he said, turning his tablet toward me. It was Charlotte's business Instagram page. The newest post showed my old driver's license photo unflattering and expired alongside a current photo of me at Horizon, clearly taken without my knowledge. The caption read, Beware of fraud. This woman is falsely claiming professional design credentials. She is actually a disgruntled family member with dementia seeking revenge. We are pursuing legal action." My hands trembled. "She's claiming I have dementia." "It gets worse," Jameson said quietly. "Then check your email." In my inbox was a message from the Broderick Foundation, our biggest pending contract. "Concerning allegations have been brought to our attention regarding a member of your team. We need to discuss this immediately." "She's contacting all our clients," Jameson explained, "telling them you're mentally unstable, that you're making false claims about your experience." My phone began ringing. Dr. Patricia Weiss. "Margaret, have you seen what your daughter-in-law is posting online? She's called every doctor in my practice claiming you're showing signs of cognitive decline and dangerous behavior. She's trying to get someone to sign off on a competency evaluation." The room seemed to tilt. "She can't do that." "She can try," Patricia said grimly, "and she's convincing. She's been crying to anyone who'll listen about how you're having delusions, how she and Michael are heartbroken watching your decline." By afternoon, 3 more clients had called Horizon expressing concerns. Charlotte had launched a scorched earth campaign, willing to destroy my reputation and mental health to save herself. I sat in my office, hands shaking. For the first time in weeks, I called Michael directly. "Make her stop," I said when he answered. Silence, then a heavy sigh. "I can't." "Can't or won't? She's telling people I have dementia, Michael. She's trying to have me declared incompetent." "Mom, she's desperate. We're losing everything. The bank is foreclosing on the house. Our business credit cards are maxed out." "So destroying me is the solution?" "I didn't know she was going this far," he said, his voice small. "Things between us, they're bad. She blames me for siding with you that day at the house." For a moment I felt a flicker of maternal concern. "Michael?" "She's not who I thought she was," he continued. "The things she's saying about you. I never should have let it get this far." Hope bloomed dangerously in my chest. "Then stop her." "I've tried. She won't listen. She says it's her or you, and I have to choose." The hope withered. And his silence was answer enough. I hung up and stared out the window. Charlotte had escalated this beyond revenge into something truly ugly. Part of me wanted to retreat, to protect myself from further harm. But a stronger part, the part that had survived losing my husband, that had worked night shifts to put Michael through college, that had stood in the rain while being humiliated, that part refused to surrender. I called Wilson, my attorney, and explained everything. "She's made a critical mistake," he said after listening. "Publicly claiming you have dementia without medical evidence is defamation per se. And attempting to manipulate medical professionals into declaring you incompetent? That's potentially criminal. What can we do?" "Fight fire with fire," he said. "You've been playing defense, time to attack." That evening, I invited Jameson, Patricia, and Lorna to my apartment. I needed allies who understood what was happening. "Charlotte thinks she can bury me with lies," I told them. "She doesn't realize I've spent decades building relationships in this town. Relationships based on trust and respect, things she knows nothing about." Patricia nodded firmly. "I've already contacted every physician in the medical association to warn them about her tactics." Lorna squeezed my hand. "And I've been documenting everything since the night they threw you out. Dates, times, witnesses." Jameson leaned forward. "Tomorrow's the Designers Guild annual gala. Everyone who matters in the industry will be there." "Including Charlotte and Michael," I said. "Yes," he smiled, "and we have 3 tickets." I looked at their determined faces and felt something unfamiliar, the strength that comes from genuine support. All those years I thought I needed to protect Michael, to sacrifice for him. I never realized how much I needed to protect myself. "Tomorrow night," I said with newfound resolve, "Charlotte learns what happens when you come after the wrong mother." The Designers Guild gala sparkled with crystal champagne flutes and industry elites when I walked in, flanked by Jameson and Patricia. I wore a midnight blue dress that made me look 10 years younger, my silver hair styled in an elegant updo. The whispers started immediately. Charlotte's smear campaign had clearly made the rounds. I spotted her across the room, draped in a designer gown, Michael standing uncomfortably beside her. She faltered mid-sentence when she saw me, her champagne glass freezing halfway to her lips. "You ready?" Jameson murmured. "I've been ready for 40 years, I replied. Throughout the cocktail hour, I worked the room with practiced ease, speaking with each board member and industry leader. People who'd been avoiding my calls suddenly found me fascinating as Patricia introduced me as one of the most respected financial administrators in the region's history. Lorna circulated with her phone, discreetly recording Charlotte's reactions. When the guild president announced dinner, I nodded to Wilson, who had arrived separately and positioned himself near the small stage. It was time. Charlotte was cornering a potential client when I approached the microphone during the brief intermission between courses. The room gradually quieted. "Good evening," I began, my voice steady. "For those who don't know me, I'm Margaret Winters, the newest partner at Horizon Designs." Charlotte started moving toward the stage, panic evident in her expression. "Many of you have heard rumors about me recently, about my mental state, my credentials." I smiled thinly. It's amazing what people will do when they're desperate. The room was utterly silent now. 3 months ago, I was going to invest my life savings, $250,000, in my son and daughter-in-law's struggling business. I let that sink in. Instead, I was thrown out of their home in my nightgown at midnight, told I smelled like death and was embarrassing to have around. Gasps rippled through the audience. I spotted Michael ashen-faced near the back wall. When I instead invested that money in Horizon Designs, my daughter-in-law began a campaign to have me declared mentally incompetent. I gestured to Patricia, who stood. Fortunately, Dr. Patricia Weiss, Chief of Psychiatry at Memorial Hospital, can verify both my cognitive soundness and the unethical attempts to manipulate medical professionals. Charlotte lunged toward the stage. "She's lying! She's confused!" Wilson smoothly intercepted her, handing printed documents to the guild president. "These are the cease and desist orders for defamation, along with statements from 3 physicians documenting attempts to falsify medical concerns." Charlotte's face contorted with rage. "You vindictive bitch! You ruined us!" "No, Charlotte," I said calmly into the microphone. "You did that yourself. The moment you decided your image was more important than basic human decency." She turned to Michael, who had finally made his way to the front of the room. "Are you going to let her do this to us? Tell them she's confused. Tell them." The room watched, breathless, as my son looked between his wife and me. In his eyes, I saw the boy who once curled against me during thunderstorms, the teenager who sobbed in my arms after his father's funeral, the man who had allowed himself to be shaped by Charlotte's ambition until he barely resembled himself. "Charlotte," he said quietly, "stop." "What?" she spat. "It's over." He turned to address the room. "Everything my mother said is true. I stood by and let it happen. I was a coward." His voice broke. "I'm so sorry, Mom." Charlotte screamed obscenities as security escorted her from the ballroom. Michael remained head bowed as the crowd buzzed with shocked conversations. I stepped down from the stage, suddenly exhausted. Jameson caught my elbow. "You just became a legend," he whispered. Michael approached cautiously. "Mom!" I held up a hand. "Not now." He nodded, accepting this boundary as the bare minimum penance. That night, as I stood on my apartment balcony watching the city lights, I felt no triumph, only release. The phone rang. Regina Sullivan. "Margaret, darling, that was magnificent. The board wants to know if Horizon would consider designing our new resort in Sedona. 7 figures, minimum. After I hung up, I opened the small velvet pouch holding Robert's ring. "Well, Bobby," I whispered to the stars, "I finally learned to put myself first." 1 year later, Horizon Designs had doubled in size. Charlotte had left town after the divorce, her reputation in tatters. Michael was working in a small design firm across state, sending monthly letters I sometimes read. We weren't ready for reconciliation, but the door wasn't permanently closed. As for me, at 70, I was thriving, traveling, consulting, dating occasionally. The woman who had stood trembling in the rain was gone, replaced by someone who knew her worth. I had never smelled better.